All right. Good afternoon. Um, Looper Talk here. Welcome to Looper Talk. Name is Tim Palmer, and we have some news that came in earlier today about Brooks Koepka going. He is now allowed, instead of them doing a year-long suspension, they have reinstated him immediately. He is now back on the PGA Tour, I believe, effectively next week, or Torrey Pines, somewhere in that region. But they decided to immediately cancel that suspension and let him back in. And so, for those who don't know, Brooks Koepka, he's a 5-time major winner. He was on the tour. I think he got in like 2013, 2014, maybe. Great player. He was one of the superstars back in late 2010s, and I believe around COVID he signed for LIV. Um, After that, he left the tour and played on LIV for, I believe, 3 to 4 years. And so now that he is no longer on LIV, his contract ended. He wanted to reinstate back with the tour. Previously, they were talking about giving him a year of no play and then slowly getting him back in. But the new commissioner, or I believe that is who it is, Brian Roble, he decided to go ahead and reinstate him immediately. And so, what we're going to talk about is the pros and the cons of this, and we're going to explain my beliefs and what the actual situation is. So, the positives behind this are very obvious. Because of the PGA Tour and their desperation for viewership, if they bring in Brooks Koepka, that would bring in some viewers. That would create a little bit of controversy as well, which would also get people emotionally interested. It's called outsourcing emotional labor. There is a lot of that going on where they will try to find a story to create us to feel emotionally invested into it. We talk about that all the time. Another positive of that would be the product is going to increase. It's going to be more appealing for us because there's going to be more competition. Very obvious there because you're bringing a 5-time major winner into the circle, and therefore he understands how to compete and he understands how to win on the biggest stages. So that'll create some competition amongst the tour, which will then create hopefully some viewership or some interest that way. And the last positive with all this is the breakage between LIV and the PGA Tour, because before there was a big gap there. There was nothing bridging that gap. There was almost a hostility deal between the two, especially coming from the PGA Tour. They were very against the LIV. They were not allowing a lot of these players. If you joined LIV or even interacted with LIV, you would have repercussions. So the fact that the PGA Tour opened its door for Brooks, that gave that kind of bridged that gap, which allowed maybe some access for more LIV players to come in, which would then help the product of the PGA Tour. Which again, I'm all for that. I think that would be conducive for the growth of the game, and that allows these players. Which I think recently they allowed the official World Golf Rankings to interact with the LIV Tour on certain events, and so that gives these players that are actually worth the world rankings back into that spotlight where they can then create some viewership and all that amongst their likeness or whatever. So there's a lot of positives in that bridging that gap between LIV and the PGA. I think that will allow the game to continue to grow, or at least give it a chance to grow, right? But I want to talk about the reality of this. I think this is where, to me, this is what I see. Okay. So, first off, this is now again, we're getting into the negative part of it. Obviously, I tend to find this more fascinating than the positives, but this is something we need to be aware of. So, the fact that the PGA Tour allowed Brooks Koepka into their tournament sector now is because the reason why, or what the PGA Tour, what it looks like to them, it makes them look weak. And what I mean by that is you have opened the door for a live player when 3 years ago you were having Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, a couple other of these superstars outwardly speaking against these live players and how they could leave a program like the PGA Tour and they're greedy and blah, 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 blah. And now all of a sudden you just let Brooks in without any sort of repercussion or some time lapse to give them that opportunity to mold a situation to where it will be fair for everybody. You just simply open the door for him. And so what that does is that makes the PGA Tour look weak, very weak. It makes them look desperate. And the reason why they look desperate is because now you went from changing your stance to one way and now you're back and completely 180 degrees different than you were 3 years ago. And I understand there's a new commissioner involved and maybe he has a change of part and a change of pace. But at the end of the day, if your product was good enough, Brooks Koepka would have been knocking on your door, which maybe he slightly did when he was asking to reinstate. But what you should have done is you should have held your ground. The fact that you were allowing him to just snap of a finger back in the tour, that's what creates this desperation look. It makes you look weak. And I know why this is going on because your viewership is down. And because your viewership is down, you decided, okay, if I bring this Brooks Koepka in, have like a villain character, oh, I can create this little bit of controversy. And guess what I can have now? I can bring up my viewership because I have this sports strategic group that created this PGA Tour Enterprises. And then I have a whole episode on this. I don't want to get into that. But now that I have this PGA Tour Enterprises and I have this sports strategic group that has funneled money through this company that's attached to the PGA Tour, I need these investors within this group to want to keep that small equity in this company. And if I don't create some buzz or I don't create viewership and I think that or I just keep things as they are, judging by the viewership and the attendance and the way things are going, you all will end up losing a lot of money and it could sacrifice the tour. So this Brooks Koepka deal is a very much a desperation to maintain these sports strategic group investors to stay within this um, program, the PGA Tour organization, so that they can continue on. And what I find very interesting too is I feel bad for these loyal PGA Tour players like Justin Thomas and Rory McIlroy. Jay Monahan had them on a stage or out in front of the media, and they were talking about how, okay, we don't think Liv deserves this. We don't think Liv players deserve to be in majors. And I'm sure if we looked at the interviews, we'd find more specifics. But we know within the golf, if you've been watching the golf progress the last 5 years, there was a period in time where the hostility between PGA and Liv was pretty tense, especially coming places like from Rory's point of view and Justin's point of view. They're very loyal to this tour, and this tour sold them this equity piece, which is that's part of the reason why they've retained these players because this sports strategic group has said, hey, look, we created this company. Now we can convince these players that they're not only going to make money, they're going to have equity in a company that can grow their investment. So most of these guys that are staying there, obviously money's involved, but the real reason why they stayed there is because they believe that they had an investment part into it. And so now that you brought Brooks Koepka back, you're thinking, okay, well, wait a minute. Even though I think within the reinstatement program, he can't get this equity piece within 5 years. Who gives a shit? I sat here and sacrificed all this, and I could have taken $100 million check and then showed up 4 years later, and you guys would have just let me back in. I already had these exemptions into the majors, but yet you convinced me that if I stay here, that's going to be a better future for me. But here we are with a guy who had like $100 million contract, and then he shows up 4 years later. He's got all this money from that he won from the LIV, which is going to be way more than that investment piece that these guys on the tour promised these tour players. And now all of a sudden we're letting him back in. So this dude had the best of both worlds. Your morale within your PGA Tour players that have been there and sacrificed all through this time with the LIV merge and all that, and they decided to stay on tour because you convinced them. These guys are pissed, dude. They are immensely pissed because LIV was offering these players quite a bit of money, and it was really life-changing money to where that they could have reinvested that money and made money back faster than they were making this equity investment from this PGA Tour Enterprises. And what's ironic is the PGA Tour Enterprises didn't start till 2024. Okay. Again, it's a company attached to the PGA Tour. They created this company because they needed money, and it was a for-profit entity. Again, I have a whole episode on this. Please do your research. I don't want to talk about that. That is a whole different topic, but that has a lot to do with what we're dealing with. Okay. And so the narrative with the LIV thing is all washed up now. You have these players that have low morale because you're thinking, all right, well, I should have taken the LIV money, but yet I had a commissioner at the time promising me this, promising me that, and yet here we are 3 or 4 years later, and those promises aren't really being filled. The viewership is down, even on some of the majors. Your attendance is not anywhere. Your attendance has basically stayed static. It just shows that there's not a lot of growth coming from the tour, if any at all. And yet you had these guys from LIV making a ton of money, and now they're able to come back with a snap of a finger. I don't know. So this is where it turns down to. So you have this PGA Tour, and they yes, they are still alive, but their relevance is leaking. People are not only now. Granted, hopefully Brooks does well. Maybe that'll create the buzz, and hopefully that'll rekindle the flame. But now the way we as fans see the tour, it's going to be like, okay, well, they're just going to make the rules as they go. This is a greed. This is a desperation tactic because I'm greedy. So we can't really trust what they're going to tell us. We can't really trust if they're even telling us the whole truth, because to them, it doesn't matter about integrity. It's about how can I make money right now and as fast as I possibly can. And you see that with this Brooks Koepka deal because they just let him slide in. Great. But now you just went back on everything you said 3 or 4 years ago. So why all of a sudden now it's cool we're just going to let him in. All good. Fine. No big deal. I don't know. It smells bad. And this is my prediction, right? And this is the thing we have to understand. If the tour was really this strong and they were really this solid of a company, they would have never even let Brooks in. They would have said, hey, look, we don't need you. If you want to reinstate, we'll give you a year, let you figure your shit out, and then we'll let you in. But the fact that they just opened the door for him right when he wanted to be reinstated, that just shows you how desperate they are for money. Period. That's all they want, because they have to make this money because of this sports strategic group, because they're invested $3 billion in. They're like, okay, here's your money. Your evaluation went up from 1.8 to 12.5 billion. You have a lot of these investors that want to be a part of it. This is your chance. And if you can't provide viewership, and if you can't provide an organization that looks like it's growing on paper, these investors are going to pull. And when they pull their money, where's the PGA Tour going to find that money? They can't. They're already at a desperate spot as it is. And so you expect to bring a LIV player, which granted, he has been a very good PGA Tour player. He won 5 majors. He is one of probably the top 30 players to ever play the game. But you can't sit there and think that this is going to work. It's not. And this is going to be my prediction, right? Because this is not a forgiveness deal. This is survival. This is a survival tactic. I need to survive, and I need to find a way to keep my investors happy, because if I don't keep them happy, okay, we lose the tour. All right. And so here we go. This is going to be how I'm ending this little episode. And this is my prediction. And go ahead and write it down. All right. So this is what's going to happen. Brooks Koepka is not going to do well the first 3 or 4 events. Maybe he makes a cut. I highly doubt he gets top 10. Highly doubt it. He's going to go there. He's going to shoot around 1 or 2 under par. He's going to be in the middle of the field. He's going to be in the TV groups where you're going to see him on TV all the time. They're going to have to do that because they got to push the viewership. So they're going to push him as his villain character. Maybe they'll pair him with Rory or they'll pair him with Justin, somebody that was really anti-live, and they're going to try to create some controversy there. And even better, they might even let these other players in. Bryson, who knows? I don't want to predict that. But the one thing I will say is Brooks is not going to do anything. Look what he's done in the majors the last few years. Okay, he doesn't care. He has money. He has so much money now. He's done. Now, maybe he'll light a fire under his ass down the road, but by the time he does that, we will have lost interest. This is why you're seeing all these players or all these fans moving over to YouTube Golf, because this is the same bullshit that we deal with every single time with the tour. They will do a desperate tactic to do whatever they can to make money. And it's gotten to the point now where it's unrelatable. That's the whole reason why it's not going to begin with. What are we left with? We're going to be left with a tour where they're going to be sitting around in about 2 years from now. They're going to be looking around. Okay, we have a shortened schedule. Great. We have some of these live guys back. Great. And to me, maybe Bryson DeChambeau might be their winning ticket because he's got so many viewers on YouTube. Huh. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. But I mean, you see TGL's fallen too. And the reason why the TGL had any clout is because of Tiger Woods. So I don't know. But I can tell you this, Brooks Koepka's not going to do well. More than likely. He doesn't care. He has the money. Now, maybe in the majors he'll give a little bit of a shit for sure, but I don't know what his motives are. Maybe he just really wants to play. I can't speak for him, but what I can tell you is this: that him coming to the PGA Tour is not enough to save the tour. It's not gonna happen. Yes, maybe for a couple months there'll be some buzz. Viewership goes up a little bit, but then once you realize that he's just like everybody else and he's middle of the pack and he's not really doing anything, well, there you go. He's going to go right back. It's going to go right back to where it was. And we're going to be having these same fucking conversations over and over again. So, in my opinion, again, if we want to fix the PGA Tour, you need to create something that is relatable. You need to make Q School free. You need to make pursuing professional golf affordable, and you need to start catering to the masses, and you need to stop giving all these international players a rite of passage onto the tour. You need to start making the tour predominantly American because that's all Americans give a shit about. And if you sell the tour out to overseas people and you sell the tour out to overseas sponsors, well, you're going to lose more and more American interest. And when you do that, guess what happens? It's going to fail. And you have all these owners of teams within this group that created this company, the PGA Tour Enterprises, because you think, okay, well, now we have to find a way to funnel money into this tour because it has to survive. Well, you convince these rich people, hey, if you invest in our tour, we will create viewership, we will get it to grow, and then your small equity piece that you're invested in will give you a positive return. So, best of luck, because this is not going to be enough. Yes, right now it is, and I'm glad that you are getting a little bit of buzz, and the next maybe month and a half will be fine. All power to you. But wait, it'll be about mid-April. We're going to be sitting around, and this whole story is going to be a wash. We're not going to give a shit. Brooks Koepka is going to be in the middle of the pack every other tournament. Okay, well, he used to be a live guy. Like, we don't give a shit anymore. So at this rate, it's going to be, and Bryson just signed with Liv again. He's with the Crushers. I don't know. Makes you wonder what Phil Mickelson was saying, right? That really always sticks in my head why he got so mad, and I'm starting to see why he's getting mad, because this PGA Tour group, PGA of America, anything with PGA in it, I'm just going to tell you right now, they don't give a fuck about you. They care about money. Period. And this whole Brooks Koepka thing is a desperation tactic to gain money. That is it. If you think that they actually care about him or they care that he's a part of the league now and the tour because, oh, we really loved Brooks. No, they want his clout. And because he brings a little bit of viewership and buzz of this villain character from LIV, they are going to ride that ship as long as they can. But in reality, we don't give a fuck. All we want is a good enough player that's coming from our social class that is an American that represents us. That's why we loved Hogan, Nicholas, Tiger, because they had this relatable portion to them. Okay? So, mark my words, it'll be 3 months from now, 2.5 months from now, and guess what's going to happen? It's going to be right back where it was because nobody's going to give a shit because Brooks is not going to be winning every tournament. He's going to be lucky to make his first 3 cuts. I promise you. And if he does, God bless him. That would be awesome, but I doubt it. I will go ahead and say it now. He will miss his first 3 cuts, and you're just going to see that viewership slowly go back to where it was. So, and God bless them. I hope they can figure out the truth around all this because I have the solution. I have the solution, but no, I get it. Small podcaster, no one wants to listen to me. I'm okay with that. But when this shit actually starts to hit the fan, oh man, that guy Looper Talk actually was, yeah, I get it now. Okay. So just hang on, let it develop because it's going to happen. But I promise you, the waste management, they're going to have a ton of people there. There's Farmers Insurance Open, whatever, in Torrey Pines, the AT&T at Pebble Beach, whatever that tournament's called now. That they're going to have a bunch of clout, and everyone's going to be watching Brooks because they're interested in that LIV controversy. But at the end, when you see him just like everybody else in the middle of the pack, no one's going to care. And then on top of that, you're going to have a hard time with your morale with these other players. I God bless you because some of these guys have stayed loyal to the tour. They have done everything the tour has asked. They've even invested in equity within this company for the tour just to stay. And they know as well as I know at the end of it, you're going to have to do more than this. I promise you, this is not going to be enough. And so God bless. I hope they figure it out. So that's my tit on the Brooks Koepka thing. Thank you for listening to Looper Talk. My name is Tim Palmer. Please send me a comment. I would love to have a conversation. That's what I'm about, creating a conversation. Hopefully we can get to some solutions, right? So, yeah, thanks again. And don't forget, lighten your bags, 200 is strapped.